Thank you for everyone for joining us today. Today's session is Amplify Your Impact, a webinar series designed to highlight digital skills and accessible tools that can help you share your message with your community. Future Generations University's mission is to advance research, learning, and action towards inclusive and sustainable community change worldwide. We do that through education, action research, and peer learning, just like what we have planned here today. So we are pleased to welcome you. If you haven't already, please go ahead and take a moment to share your name and where you're joining in from in the chat. And then we want to just go over some housekeeping reminders here. So we will have a brief introduction. So Deborah Sosower will be taking us through an informational session on video editing. And after the presentation, so it'll be about 30 minutes for the presentation, we'll have an open forum for questions and group sharing. And the webinar will wrap up at the end of the hour. And this recording and presentation deck will be shared with all of you in the coming days after. And so thank you for joining. And I'm going to go ahead and turn us over to Deborah, please. But before I do, sorry, I just want to mention, if you have any questions, please go ahead and use the Q&A at the bottom toolbar of your Zoom screen, or you can also place them in the chat and we will make sure to bring those up. You can also share tips and links and any other resources that you may have encountered to share with your peers in this session. So thank you, Deborah, and please go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. My name is Deborah Sosower. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Communications at Future Generations University, and I am the resident video editor on staff at the moment. There's some other members of our staff who also have some background in graphic design, but I'm actually self-taught. My background's in fine art, and about 15 years ago, I decided I really wanted to do a film. I wanted to introduce filmmaking into my own studio art practice, but I didn't know how. And so I used Craigslist to find someone who would burn me their version of one of the filmmaking softwares, Final Cut Pro. And I just experimented and tried to figure out how to do it. And I was able to work with a filmmaker who was a professor at Georgia State University. I was living in Atlanta at the time. And so that was a really formative and wonderful experience. I later transitioned the software I typically use for video editing is Premiere Pro, which is in the Adobe suite. But today I'm bringing you a little bit of an overview of video editing, a little bit of the preparatory information that will be helpful when you're capturing video footage or other footage to put into a video. And then I'm going to do a brief demonstration with a free video tool that we recently discovered. So this will be a time for us to explore it a little bit together. And I do want to set some expectations. Video editing is pretty complex. Its video files are very large. They take up a lot of room. I really debated trying to create a program today that would be about mobile video editing on your phone, because I think that would be a great skill. But because the way I edit video is on a desktop, that's what I decided I wanted to share today. And as we move forward and we get feedback, these Amplify Video webinar series is very collaborative. So we actually hear from you, our viewers and our participants, about what you have said would be most helpful in your practice. So if we hear back that learning how to edit video on your phone is vitally important, we'll put that work in and do our best to provide that for you as well in the future. So I just want to say that what I'll cover is going to be an overview and an introduction, and the best way to get comfortable with it is to give yourself some dedicated time to sit down and just experiment and explore. And I do have some resources that we'll share with some tutorials. Um, we're in the business of Future Generations University, but I joke a lot about using YouTube University. So there are so many wonderful content producers who are familiar with different softwares, different platforms. And so you can usually Google, like when I want to do like a special effect on a video, I'll do a lot of YouTube research and find someone who can walk me step by step through that very specific um, individual effect that I want. But let me get into the start of the program, which is to start off with that 30,000-foot view, which is why worry about video at all? If it is hard, if it is complex, if it can be a challenge to produce, if it's expensive in terms of space, and in terms of your time, like, if you don't have hours and hours maybe to put a video together, is it still important? Well, it really is. It's a multisensory media output, and it really touches people in a way um, that just grabs you. I mean, I think we can all be very human in this moment and think about, I don't know if any of you have cried when you've seen a commercial. I have, and that is the power of um, messaging, of seeing people's faces. Like our human biology, our bodies are just attuned to wanting to connect face to face, literally face to face with other people. And video allows for that to happen in a way that the written word just doesn't. So you're combining that visual, you're combining sound. Music is a very evocative, very emotional, like pulling, uh, output as well. Um, and you can also use still visual images, and you can add that. You can add text on top of that with captions, with title cards, instructions. So you really get everything wrapped up together. Um, and there's all sorts of statistics, but something like over 80% of people get their news media through video content instead of like written word newspapers in our modern era. So, and similar, we mentioned this the very first session of this season of Amplify. We talked about email campaigns, and I remember Lindsay saying that the content that you can use in one email can then be translated and transformed into other communications outputs, such as social media or direct, other communicate. Just it can just be transformed. Video is the same way. So you can repurpose your videos. You can do a very long um, interview, and then you can take clips from that interview and you can use those for reels. You can use those for testimonials. And so you can take something and transform it and repurpose it many times. So what makes a good video? Um, you want to have a storytelling element, and you want it to be very audience focused. So you want to know who you're communicating with and what you think will draw them in, and that's the start of it. You really do want to have engaging visuals. You don't want to have something that's very static, because that will just lose engagement. The secret to a good video is really good audio. If you have a beautiful image and you cannot hear what's happening, that's very off-putting. Again, it's a biological response. There is a connection to people as they age and they lose their hearing, to having cognitive dissonance with the world. And it's because, so actually hearing aids is a really good intervention that actually helps with mental and cognitive upkeep as you age. And that's because we are so tied to the audio of our world that it helps us feel like we can connect to it. And the final piece of a good video is a strong call to action, which means that there is a purpose to the video, and that after consuming or watching or experiencing a video, the person or people in your audience will then take an action that you want them to take. So going a little deeper into video storytelling, all videos are going to have the same, kind of have the core elements of a beginning, middle, and end, characters or subjects on which to focus, and a purpose. So if you're creating something that's purely fictional, if you're thinking about, something artistic, it's still going to have a story arc of a beginning, middle, and end. There's still going to be some focus to that. And then there's going to be a reason that you want people to watch it, even if that reason is to have like an evocative emotional response. In the communications world, what you're trying to do with your video is to create a behavior that helps connect your audience to your brand, to your services, to your enterprise. It might be even, connecting people to become members or to become part of your staff or to give you money, right? Or to support you in other ways. So the important thing before you create a video is to think of the purpose. What are you trying to communicate, and what do you need to happen as a result of that communication? And then that will help you formulate the way you want to compose and then edit your videos. So some of the ways you can prepare for a video production would be storyboarding. So on the screen, you can see just a visual sketch of what storyboarding might look like. And that's where you kind of in your head and you add on paper. And there's all sorts of apps that you can do that. I think actually Canva might have an app that can help you storyboard. And you just lay out exactly the kinds of footage, images, text, like that you would want to communicate a story. Now, this isn't, you might see, like if you see behind the scenes features for movies, or especially animated features, a lot of times they'll show the storyboarding period. And that's where, nothing has been animated yet, nothing has been drawn. But, in order to understand what to draw, you need a storyboard. You need to see where the action will be and what needs to be created. The same is true also with live action footage, even if it's not fiction. I've worked with my cross-collaborative communications team to create storyboards and to create scripts for videos that we've produced, that we want to help people understand what is exciting about going on a field course with the university, or as I was mentioning kind of at the start of this program, how the master's degree works. Today, the demonstration I'm going to use is on, we recorded an information session with alumni who were Service Corps members. They were either members of Peace Corps or AmeriCorps. And so we needed to lay out exactly what we wanted to capture with that information session. There was also scripts involved there. If you're describing the action behind the scene, if you are doing an information session, I didn't write a script for today's presentation, but it would have been good if I had, because I'm very comfortable speaking, and I tend to talk longer if I don't have a script in front of me. And so I found that when I need to communicate the information, even though I don't struggle with public speaking, I do create a more cohesive and a more efficient experience for my audience viewer when I follow my script. So some other things to think about are locations. So where are you going to shoot? I'm not even going to get into the today, like there may become issues of consent if you're capturing footage of people. Like consent is extremely important. But beyond that, thinking about like where are you even going to be able to set up a space if you want to do an interview with somebody where they feel comfortable and where there isn't going to be a lot of background noise, or you're not going to be you're going to be in a safe space. So those are some of the things to think about before you capture your footage. What are you going to use? Are you going to use your phone? Do you have access to cameras or video recording equipment? Do you have access to microphones that can help you capture that really high quality audio? That is important. And you really want to make sure that the people you're working with in your video capture feel comfortable and are prepared to work with you. So the types of video footage you might capture would be a talking head video, talking head footage. That's what you're seeing right now on the screen. So this is me. Well, you can see that I have a presentation, but the visual that is being captured on video through this Zoom portal is just my head and shoulders, my portrait speaking, facing the camera, talking to you, the audience. The other kind of primary footage that you might see or want to capture is action footage. So your primary footage would be showing your subject maybe talking to the camera as they're walking through down a hallway, or across a field. There's also secondary footage, which is often called B-roll, and that would be any kind of action shots that could be like, panning of the landscape. That can also be capturing a crowd walking through a busy city street. It can be any just kind of action footage that helps to increase the engagement of your video, but that would be in the background while your subject there might be a voiceover of your subject speaking. A third type of video footage would be screen capture, and that would be where you are taking a video of your computer screen or tablet or mobile device so that people can follow along with your cursor movements. And actually, we'll be doing some screen capture a little later when I show you the demonstration of this video editing software. Another type of footage that you'll see quite often is animation. So some of the tips that I will leave you with is that it is really helpful when you're capturing footage of particularly interviews is to have a little bit of a pause of space of silence at the beginning of whatever you're recording, and then continue to record for just a few seconds of silence after you finish the recording, because that space really will help you in the editing process. And I'll show you why. I can't reiterate it enough. Audio makes a big difference. And so it's better to plan for better audio. Even if your video footage, if it could be magnificent because you're in this wide open field, but you cannot hear the person that you're trying to hear, your video is not going to be as effective. So it's better to be closer to the person, capture that better audio, and then maybe use B-roll to show that beautiful epic panning shot, but that you can still really hear the person speaking or whatever audio is there to hear. And it's really helpful. You're going to get better outcomes when you prepare and you coach the people you're working with. So again, in an interview situation, you're going to want to tell people what to wear. This is even true if you're capturing that not in person. Chris does lots of virtual discussions, interviews, and webinar programs with alumni, and so she tells them the kind of clothes that will appear better on the camera versus not. When you have like a background like you see here, if I were to wear think about a green screen. If you wear clothing that looks too much like the background, your whole body disappears. And that's just a trick of the cameras. So thinking about what to wear, where to sit, something else to think about with interviews. My experience has been, don't put anyone in a swivel chair because they will swivel. and in person, you're so engaged in what people say that you don't think about it. But when you take a step back and you look at the footage, you can't help but just see somebody just moving around. I've placed people and I haven't noticed, okay, I have a little Lego flower here, and I don't know if you can, this thing won't see, but if I have something behind me that can show up occasionally in the video, very distracting. So those are a couple of things. Oh, the last tip I want to share, this is something I've noticed. If you are speaking to someone and they're giving you content for video and they're looking at the camera, they're doing really good. As soon as they've finished saying whatever it is that they're answering the question or they're telling the anecdote, The automatic human thing to do is to then look at look at the person off camera. And that's very distracting to the viewer. So when I have an interview with someone, I coach them to take a deep breath and then speak. If they fumble over their words, that's okay because you can edit it. So you just ask the subject matter, like the kind of normal inclination is to keep talking, just keep talking and scrub over it. But for video, what's better is to say, "Oh, I messed that up. Let me start again." Take a breath, that little silent couple seconds. Continue to say what you're going to say, stop, and look at the camera for about 2 seconds before looking away from the camera. And those are just some of the real tips that I've experienced over the years of capturing video and working with other people. So before we get into the actual demonstration, I want to just go over a few vocabulary terms that are specific to video editing. And these are kind of universal terms. So your assets would be whatever the original raw video clips that you found or that you created. The audio, if that's separate, like say you want to include music in your video, or any kind of image elements that you might need. The aspect ratio is how wide and tall your video appears on the screen. A clip is just a short or shortened segment of a video. A keyframe is a point that you can add to videos that help tell the software when to begin or end a transition. Rendering is when the file is compositing together. So basically when the software is taking all of the clips, all of the text, the images, the audio, and they're combining them into being one file. You usually render a video when you're ready to see it, to preview it, or to export it as a finished video. The timeline is the name of the workspace where you're editing your video. And so what that looks like is kind of a long, skinny couple of like tracks that are chronological from left to right. And then your workspace that's the timeline. And then your workspace, which we'll see in a moment, will usually also have a preview of what the video is looking like. And it also has windows that will open for you to be able to manipulate and edit video and the different properties that you might be working in. So the track is any single layer in your timeline. So you can have different tracks for audio, for different videos, for images, for captions, and they all layer on top of each other. So whatever track is at the top of your screen is what the camera will see most. So whatever is on top will cover up what's on the layers below. And then a transition is a method of connecting shots or clips between each other. So that might be fading from one clip into the next, or you might kind of have a clip like drop down in front. So any of those would be considered a transition. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a free video editing software. It's called OpenShot. The address to download this is on the screen. I think one of my colleagues will also share it in the chat. But this is a pretty decent editing software for a desktop, but you can download it no matter what your operating system is. So now I'm going to I've downloaded this and experimented with it, and I'm going to show you how I will use it to do some simple video editing for an information session with Service Corps members. So, and I've also made my cursor very big so that I hope that you'll be able to kind of follow along with me. And I will ask Lindsay and Chris to let me know if my screen is if it's not lining up with my words, if there's any delay or lag in what you're seeing versus what I'm describing. So what I've opened up here is the video editing window. So you can start a new project. You can save your projects here. You can export in your file. This is like a pretty simple version. So you can see different windows here. This is the simple view, the advanced view. You can see kind of like all sorts of windows that are open. These are the kind of transitions. This is the timeline here below. These are the individual tracks. I'm gonna keep us in a simple view because this is going to be a simple demonstration. Now, when you can also manipulate the window so that you can kind of see, you can make it custom to what your comfort level is. And now I really like to see the images large, and I also like to see the tracks as close as I can because that's really helpful for me to be able to determine what to edit. So in OpenShot, right above the timelines, right above these tracks, you can kind of see this this section here. This is how like how close you can get to the actual moment in time. You can see that these numbers here are the timestamps. So minute 17 is here, an hour and 8 minutes is here. But if I'm really interested in doing like a very like a close like edit, I can manipulate this kind of, it's like a zoom, I guess. And so I can go and see, okay, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 14 minutes. And that's going to be, again, easier for editing. At the bottom of the timeline, there's another like kind of scroll that you'll be able to manipulate. There's also some cursor shortcuts. If you press Control, and you can kind of use like the cursor wheel that you know, when you push it forward or pull it back when you're pressing Control, that can also adjust the kind of the zoom feature. The project files are everything that you will be able to pull into your timeline. These are the assets. So you can drag and drop. You can drag something directly into the timeline and then it'll automatically populate into your project file assets, or you can also import. And I went ahead and imported a number of the assets that I want to use today just to save time. And again, video editing is time consuming, and it's also it takes a lot of memory, it takes a lot of work, like the work of your computer. So I would also close down other like close down your browser, close down other apps that are open, and to give your computer enough space so that it can you can do the video editing more quickly. There's also tips to work with smaller file sizes in the video editing platform so that it renders more quickly. But what I have here is I recorded a video with our chief academic officer and with 3 alumni who were Service Corps members. And this is meant to be, what my goal for this is to attract new students who are returned Service Corps members, either Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, because we have an incredible scholarship opportunity for them. And people in the Service Corps receive a cash award from the government for their service. And our degree is that award is specifically for continuing education, and we qualify as one of the service universities that return service members can attend and that they can use that money towards. So if you were in the AmeriCorps, in the Peace Corps, and you come back and you want to get another degree, the award that you get can pay for almost all of the tuition for future generations. So you can actually you can do the graduate degree at very low personal cost. And then even more importantly, people who have done AmeriCorps or Peace Corps service, they're deep into community development. And so our degree really connects to the service and the work that they're already engaged in and helps them, as they advance in their careers outside of the Corps. So the first clip I have is the introduction to the information session. So this is going to be the beginning. And you can just see I've just dragged this onto the timeline. I can drag it anywhere. I'm going to put it on the bottom track just because I want to. One of the things that I will recommend doing is changing the view. Right now, you see that this is a video clip, and you can just see that there is a thumbnail of what that video would look like. This yellow line is what is going to appear on the preview screen. So if I press play, you will soon see a video, the video. And that's only if it were going to work while I'm doing a live demo, which maybe it's not working. Let's try a different one. So I've dragged another file into this video, and now you can see it. One of the things I want to show you real quick is that if you like this file is not performing correctly, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to remove the clip. Now what that does is it takes it away from the timeline. It's no longer going to be, it would not render into a finished video, but it still appears in your project file. So anything that you do to manipulate any of your assets on the timeline does not impact the original file the original asset that you've brought into your project. So what I'm going to do is, I wonder if between setting up my assets yesterday in preparation for today's, if that somehow messed up this demo. So what I've done is I've just imported those assets again. Now in this timeline, I can actually, I can remove that file from the project itself. So now let's see. I'm going to bring that, that's the second one. Well, okay. Let's do a demonstration on what I already have. So I'm going to remove that clip. I'm going to bring this clip forward.
Okay, finally, so how do you apply? We have a pretty simple application process. You go to the admissions link at future.edu.
Okay, so you can see that it works. You can hear the audio, you can see the visual. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on that clip. And now you can see the other thing I like to do on this software is I'm right-clicking on the track, on the clip itself. This pop-up window comes up. There's lots of ways that you can manipulate this. You can change the volume. You can change the volume of the entire clip. Let's say someone is speaking and they're a little too soft. You can increase it above 100% so that it comes even louder. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the display and I'm going to show the waveform. And if you can see, now you can, all of these waves are indicating speech or audio patterns. And so again, this is really helpful. Like if you look right here, there is a pause between speaking. And that can be really helpful when you're editing. If that, in this case, I've already edited this clip, but it could indicate that that would be the end of when someone spoke, and that's when you can cut that clip.
On how many credits you take. If you choose to go on one of our residential field courses, you'll pay tuition and the cost of getting there. All other in-country program costs beyond tuition are covered. So that's it.
So that pause was indicative of Chris taking, he's reading from a script. He needed to advance the slide on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the yellow tracker, and so that this is showing in real time. Above the timeline, there are a couple of like common editing tools. One that I've clicked on is called snapping. It looks like a little magnet. So for OpenShot, if you click on that tool, you're activating it. And you can click on it again to deactivate it. So right now, the tools you can see just have a dark background and just show the tool. But I like having clips be able to snap together, because that way that helps them be seamlessly next to each other and not have a blank, a black screen in between your clips. But you see a picture of scissors. That is going to be your clipping function. So I'm going to click on that. The background is slightly hazy, which means that it's active. And when I put my cursor onto the timeline, you can see what they call a razor. And you see this kind of dotted line and this razor or scissor. And so I'm going to line up my razor right to the kind of the timeline indicator, that yellow line. And I'm going to click on it. And you can see that there are now two different clips. I'm now going to move using the cursor, I've kind of left clicked on it to move it. And I'm going to do another cut. Now, in order to get rid of the cut, I'm moving my cursor back to the tool, and I'm going to disable it. I'm just going to click on it. And now my cursor just will be normal and it will grab something. So I'm going to click that middle of this empty space. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to remove the clip. So now that's, if we were just to leave it as is, this is how the video would look.
All other in-country program costs beyond tuition are covered. So that's it.
So I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my second clip and I'm going to like pull it towards the clip. And as I get closer to it, it automatically just, like a magnet, just synced up with the other clip so that it would be seamless. That is how that snapping tool works. So now let's watch it and see what it looks like together.
And the cost of getting there. All other in-country program costs beyond tuition are covered. So that's it. I am happy.
So this is helpful. A lot of, you'll hear, it's sort of, some of this is like native language dependent, but all languages have filler noises that the human vocal cords will make as people are thinking, processing, and it's a way to kind of lubricate the conversation. In American English, the word is quite often what is used. Another common phrase you'll hear is in French, a lot of the sound will be like an like that's sort of your thinking, your kind of just pausing noise. So depending on your subject, if they use a lot of ums or other filler noises, those are little things that you can clip to help the audio sound better. And that's really helpful if you're going to put some sort of visual on top. So even though this doesn't need it, we're just going to pretend that I want to add some B-roll. So let's see if I can do that with one of these clips, if it'll show up. So what I've done is I've dragged a video clip to a track on top of the track that we're working on. And if this video clip was functioning correctly, you would not be able to see the video beneath it. But this is one of the clips that is not working today. So let's see if a still image will work instead. It does. Okay. So I've layered this clip on top. It doesn't completely cover the track below it because the image is smaller than the screen size. So you can see that there are these nodes at the sides of your video, and you can take those and you can just drag them however you want them to be. You can also kind of flip them if you decided that that was the visual that you wanted to do. I'm going to choose Control Z to take a step back in history to undo that kind of rotation. Now I want to say I want this to fade into the image, and I want to fade back out into the video. So I'm going to right click on that still image. I'm going to go up to fade, and I'm going to say I want to slowly fade in at the start of the clip. And then I'm going to right click again, go to fade, and go to the end of the clip. And I want to, let's do a fast fade out. Let's just see what that looks like. And you can kind of see the video editing software. There's that little blue line next to the yellow cursor. And that was like kind of like in real time rendering this clip. So now let's see what it looks like.
Courses, you'll pay tuition and the cost of getting there. All other in-country program costs beyond tuition are covered. So that's it. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. Please email me at chris.roper@future.edu.
So what you'll notice, and I didn't know that this would happen, I thought the fade would literally just fade into the image once it had been resized. But the act of resizing the image created keyframes so that, and those are those little blue dots that you can see. And so what I've done is I've taken my cursor and I've selected the blue dot, which is a keyframe. And what I'm doing is I'm making that keyframe, you can see it happening in real time on the screen. So I'm manipulating that keyframe. And what I'm doing is I'm actually going to take it all the way to the end and see what happens.
And the cost of getting there. All other in-country program costs beyond tuition.
So that keyframe was connected to the slow fade in. And so that means that because the keyframe is farther away from the start on the timeline, chronologically left to right, that fade is gonna connect dot A to dot B. Those are the two keyframes. So when they're closer together, the fade is gonna happen faster because it's gonna go from 0 to 100 from A to B. And if the B is farther away, that fade is gonna be a lot slower. So I think we can all agree that this is the perfect video and we need to do no other editing. Except I do want to add, I like to add our logo to the end of the video. And what I'd like to do is I want to fade in and out of the entire clip.
Val for joining us.
Great. So now I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to save the project. And I'm going to export the project. And what should happen is a pop-up window will come up to export. So here you can rename it. I'm going to rename this editing demo. You can determine where you want this video to live on your computer. So I'm going to go into my Amplify folder and select that folder. Usually by default, your folder path, like where it's going to be saved to, is whatever the most recent place you saved a video usually automatically populates. And what's nice about OpenShot is that you can determine what format you want to save it to. So if you want to save it for a web, which is most common, if you want to put it on a website, on your Google site, if you want to incorporate it into one of your social media posts. So now under Target, they give you a lot of options. If you want to do it for YouTube, if you want to do it on Instagram, and it will automatically change that aspect ratio so that it will be compliant. You can also say, okay, if you're doing this on social media, you might want it to be a low quality video because that means that it is going to be a smaller video. But if you want this to appear on your YouTube channel, you want it to be a high quality video. And then you press export. And this is exporting pretty quickly, but I'll often have like the Amplify series. This is very similar to how I edit down the recording of this presentation. And so for a video that's an hour long, sometimes it can take over an hour for that video to render and to export. This, of course, is only a 3-minute video, so the export is going pretty quickly, and it will usually give you a percentage of the progress and how much time might remain. People are sharing their filler words on the chat. That's wonderful. So let me get back to my presentation because I just have one more wrap up slide. And then we don't have a lot of time for questions, but I'm very, very interested in hearing anything from the chat. So yeah, when you export your video, some of the key pieces of information you're going to want in order to then share that video with the world will be the title. Usually you'll need some sort of a description. So if it's on YouTube, you'll need a video description. If it's for social media, you'll want to have your post content that also includes a call to action. You will usually need to have a thumbnail, so whatever will appear as a still of your video when people are searching for it or when it appears on your timeline on your social media. It's important especially if you're filming and you want it to be if you have a non-native speaker in your language. Most channels will create subtitles automatically. That's becoming that's a wonderful new accessibility feature for YouTube and for and others. But you might also consider doing captioning. And that's something that I know I try to do with our videos because we have we deliver most of our educational services in English. And so we deliver a lot of our communications in English as well. And we have international global network who are contributing to these services and to these sessions. So captioning them, that gives you control. So because you can actually write and have text with exactly what someone says. When you use an automatic subtitler, they're getting better and better all the time, but they can misname or misstate what people say. And then think about the size and video length limits. So if you were posting something on Facebook, usually you can post longer videos. On Instagram, your video cannot be longer than 60 minutes, or it won't appear on your post. So with that, I think we do have just a few moments. Um, Chris, Lindsay, any questions that have surfaced during this presentation?
I was just going to mention, like, sometimes it can be helpful, particularly when using YouTube. When you upload a video, I have to walk away from it for a couple
Yes.
hours for the subtitles to be able to populate. So just because you don't see them
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they're not coming. They're coming, but they're just delayed. Um, and I find that they can be very helpful in when you're pulling apart something, particularly on the topics, if you're, going to use a video. Like sometimes, to be frank, I use YouTube to pull apart videos. From the content and the conversations that are going on versus posting, actually. So just a random thing there. Uh,
And I will
and we
say too,
had,
oh, go ahead.
no, there was a comment earlier about um, discussing or using AI or Canva. And there, I mean, there are some AI capabilities that are out there. Um, Depending on if you pay for it or not, is a lot of whether or not you can have the quality that you want and the feedback. It can be really, really difficult to direct AI to make a video. Um, However, it is a technology that is getting better every day. And so something that you do today can't even compare with something that was done 3 or 6 months ago. So, and then of course, yeah, Canva does offer a video editing capability as well. So if you're looking at a web possibility, that is also out there. So,
Yeah. And yeah, and YouTube also, you can also edit your video in YouTube once it's been uploaded. And I did experiment before today's presentation. I went onto YouTube with the original of this video. I went into Canva with this and I was trying to see if that was going to be at all like similar to the way that I do video editing with Premiere Pro. And I didn't, and I found them to be, those are really good for what I found it was they were really good for finishes and they aren't as good for like the little nitpicky, like I want to cut out a pause. I need to, you know what I mean? Like if you just need to, shorten a video from the beginning or the end, those have, or if you want to do some sort of filter, if you want your video to look like it was filmed, 50 years, if it's like, if you want like it to look like sepia or like an old timey video, like there are some really fun filters on Canva, for example.
And I know that we're at time, but just quickly, I want to say, as someone who genuinely did not like to be on video when they started this job, and is regularly on video now. If you are avoiding using video because you are like me and you just don't like being on video, um, don't worry about it. Like, seriously, let me tell you that. Don't worry about it. You don't have to be perfect. That was one of my biggest fears, is that I had to show up perfectly, that I couldn't make mistakes, that um I had to look um perfectly. And that is not how anybody wants to see you. Your audience wants to be able to relate to you. They want to be able to see themselves in who they are um, viewing, who they are seeing it. So keep that in mind, who you're talking to. So if you are going to be addressing your donors, yeah, you want to fix yourself up a little bit more and be a little bit more presentable. If you're talking to your community, address your community in an appropriate way. But it's okay to fumble over words. I do it all the time. And I don't stress out about that anymore. It's okay. And if, especially if you're going to be doing video editing, you don't have to worry about it that much more because it's not live. You can edit that stuff out. But don't have these apprehensions because you have such a special gift to share with the world, and you have all of these amazing tools to help you do it. So just wanted to give some encouragement there because I'm really happy that I've gotten over that little hiccup that I had of myself, because I'm able to help so many more people now that I don't have this little thing of my own.
Yeah, you're so right, Lindsay. And now that you guys are going to start to do some video editing, you get the pleasure of saying, "We'll fix it in post." And I just before we move on to our final slide and say our goodbyes, I want to just raise up something that Lori shared, which is that it is so important to think about accommodations and accessibility for your audience. Um, that you can include descriptions of what are seen on the screen for the visually impaired. And that, I mean, as Chris just said about AI, captioning and software is also improving, actually with the help of AI as well. So some of the things to think about when you're creating a video is not just the video editing it to be as complete and finished as you want it to be, but also how are you presenting it to your audience? That's as important, and making sure that it speaks to and communicates in the ways that are important for your audience needs and for your enterprise and personal needs. So we will finish by saying thank you so much. Thanks for coming on this journey. And I'm excited to see the kind of videos that you will edit and put together. And we encourage you to come back next week because Chris is not, we're not just going to talk about how to communicate with people, but we're going to talk about where people are located in the world. So Chris, let me give you just a moment so that you can give us a preview of what we'll be learning and doing some hands-on work for our Amplify session next week.
Thank you. So next week I'm going to be focusing on Google Maps and using it in a storytelling way. Particularly, it's a great way to allow people to interact with what you're doing, almost like a portfolio. And so that is how I am focusing our session next week, showing you different examples, showing you two different methodologies of how to start a Google Map for your project. So it will be a little dense, but I hope that you enjoy it.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Chris and Lindsay, for your support and contributions. Thanks to everyone who joined us live today. And thank you to all of you who are watching us in post. We look forward to seeing you at future Amplify sessions, including next week's Google Maps session. Have a wonderful rest of your day, your week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.